Well, to our guests, Andrea Trimarchi, Simone Farazin of Formafantasma. I'm Mark Anderson, I'm the Director of Education, and I'll just be doing a very brief introduction. With me tonight is also Fabio Sidu, the Managing Director, and of course, Caterina Lunghi, who is a longtime collaborator of Domus Academy and a journalist. And we also have our students and some of our program leaders. Caterina will conduct a conversation with our guests. And then afterwards, with our program leader, Aoi Asagawa, there will be some questions that some of the students have put together and are particularly interested in getting some direct feedback and response from you guys. Just as a very brief introduction to Andrea and Simone, even though they and their work in Formafantasma really doesn't need any introduction for anybody who's in the design field. The duo they're Italian in origin, even though their work within the international sphere and they have their home bases in the Netherlands. One of the things which I'd like to do just for a brief introduction is read something from their website, and it sort of sums up really for me who they are and what they do.
Mark, wait a minute. Maybe is this one because it's also my slide. You need this?
That's it. See, the preface is the same, like mine.
Please go ahead.
So, Formafantasma is a research-based design studio investigating the ecological, historical, political, and social forces shaping the discipline of design today. Whether designing for a client or developing self-initiated projects, the studio applies the same rigorous attention to the context of processes and details. Formafantasma's analytical nature translate in meticulous visual outcomes and product strategies. One of the first things which really strikes me about Formafantasma and their work is how well crafted their approach is to the profession. They address design as an intellectual discourse where it becomes research and reflection. For those of our guests this evening, this is a wonderful occasion to be able to meet the two behind Formafantasma. And I know tonight they have a general as a topic they're going to be talking with us, and Caterina will guide us through this. But absolutely, this occasion for such international leading next generation designers is great for our students. We can't even start to list the number of collaborations which they've done for companies, but they are all top level companies from Fendi, Hermes, Lots, Established and Sons, the Biennale di Venezia, plus many exhibitions, care of museums, individual exhibitions, and then the last one, which I believe is part of the topic tonight, is from the Serpentine Gallery, which was a dedicated show of their work. So welcome again. Thank you for being with us. Welcome our guests. And I'll hand over the microphone to Caterina. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for the introduction.
Guys, so I would like to start with your website. So that's why I put this introduction, because your latest news is the new website that you launched last week or something. And why the website? Because it's a low consumption. Try to minimize the energy and CO2 emission. So I think that this is a quite super nice example of your way of thinking and working, very coherent and consistent with your ecological values, right, guys?
Yes.
So, and this is
Thank you.
just a snapshot from your website.
We can talk more about it. So what we can tell you is that you know, until not long ago, we had a website. We weren't really happy about it in terms of how it was communicating our work, but we never really had time to look into it and to redesign it, to rethinking about it. And then when we thought of working again on a new website, of course, we thought about how to communicate the content of our work, but inevitably we end up also thinking about the infrastructure that allows us to navigate the internet, which is in fact the internet. And one of the things that a lot of people don't underestimate is that all the things that we perceive as virtual, they in fact have a tremendous impact in the environment. The internet is an extremely intricate infrastructure, both that it's physical and it involves data centers, it involves the consumption of energy, a lot of energy for cooling the machines that operates the storing of data and the functioning of our website. So because we were also coming from you know, the knowledge, the experience of the work we did a few years ago related to electronic waste, we thought this was an occasion also to look into what is possible to do when you design a website to minimize the CO2 emissions connected to it. And of course, when you design something, you cannot necessarily resolve the problem of the infrastructure, you know, that operate that service. In any case, you can contribute in making something as simple as a website more efficiently designed, so to minimize these CO2 emissions.
And the choices that we did in the website are very simple. Like, for instance, using system fonts like Arial and Times New Roman. That are fonts that everybody has already installed in the computer. So when actually you open our website doesn't send any weird signal to computers. So practically you're gonna immediately use the system fonts. And another thing is usually the most visited page is the home page. And usually, like as it is now in the most website, there is a lot of content. You know, like if you look into fashion website, design website, the first page is really about having a lot of images. And this is something that we want to avoid, because usually the first page is the one that you look when you look into a website. And it's the first, how do you say, scrematura?
It's where basically the people that end up in a website decide if they want to continue looking at a website or not.
Exactly.
A lot of people bump into a website and don't necessarily want to know more. So we decided, for instance, to postpone all the visual content in a subsequent page. I mean, of course, these are all simple strategies that a lot of people maybe apply already without knowing this reduces CO2 emissions. But we also decided to do versions of the website in white for laptops and in black for mobile devices, because mobile devices often use OLED screens that use brightness. The more something is bright, the more it consumes energy. And last but not least, well, the graphic designer we work with, Studio Blanco, he designed the logo for us, but it's not really an image. It's using Unicode symbols. So basically, you can copy paste it, and it's not again something heavy or based on icons. And also the Studio Blanco looked for us into servers that they still use normal energy system to run the server. But what they do is they buy 3 times the energy they consume from renewable energies, and they replace this energy in the grid. Just to say something else that I want to mention, in the last years, there has been a lot of proliferation of websites that uses the aesthetic of early days internet infrastructure as a style. But this is not what we were interested in doing here. We were really interested in following this pursuit of removing, or not removing, but decreasing the CO2 emissions connected to navigation on our website. And there are ways to check your own website online and platforms to see how much your website is sort of greener or dirtier than other websites. And so we try to make also the coding of the graphic designers work with the developers to really make the coding of the website as clean as possible.
So for instance, if you check in this website, it's like carbon calculator for website. For instance, our website is 90% cleaner than
80%.
other 88%, so almost 90% cleaner than other website in internet. So, you know, with really simple, you know, changes in the website, you can really have a big impact. Of course, a website like ours that has, I don't know, around 1,000 people visiting per day is not a big issue. But if you start to, you know, put this one in huge website like Repubblica, The Zine, you know, like you can name it, of course, this can have a huge impact.
Great. Fabio, take note of this website, new solution. And guys, I think you might agree that your work explores 3 big areas: research, product, and exhibition design.
Mm-hmm.
And with the research, I mean your project, your studies about materials, new materials that you would like to explore, like charcoal or volcano lava. Like you mentioned, the Aura Streams exhibition with the electronic components. That very often this research then leads you to exhibition. For example, Cambio, one of the biggest projects of the last year from you guys that led you to the eponymous exhibition at Serpentine Galleries in London. So here is an image from this project. This is from your website, so we can see a kind of a list of your main research project. There is Cambio from 2020. And if you can tell us more about Cambio, that means change, but also means something relating to the trunk of the tree, right?
Exactly, yes.
Well, so Cambio was a commission from Serpentine Galleries in London, where the artistic director, Anzore Cobrist, asked us to engage with the possibility of doing an exhibition there. And they were open to do whatever we were interested in doing. But one request from Anzore was extremely clear. He said, I'm not interested to do an exhibition about product at Serpentine. We want to show the way of thinking of designers, and in line to what they did with Martino Gamper and Konstantin Gricin before us. So we thought, because of the location, you know, Hyde Park, you know, in the middle of the park, and because also of a series of other reasons, we decided to focus on the timber industry as a subject. So the exhibition is actually not about wood, but the exhibition is about the politics, the shapes, the extractions of timber from forests. Why should design be interested in exploring this? Well, because we believe that for a very long time as designers, we have been focusing on delivering services and products to users. On the other side, I think there is a whole other part of the world that we should look into, and it's actually looking more critically at the infrastructure upon which we design. In this case, is the extraction of timber from forests, to understand which are the politics that regulate forests, where the wood we use is coming from, what are the forces, the shapes of forestal practices today, because we believe that then as designer we can make more informed choices, and not only informed choices, I would say, but maybe we can even possibly participate in conversation that lead to more ecological development of the use of materials.
And in order to do so, I think the most important thing is to be multidisciplinary. So the exhibition is really conceived as a huge net of connection that we did throughout these months of research with the different institutions from the Tunen Institute in Germany, the Kew Gardens in London. Then we collaborated with scientists, with philosophers like Emanuele Coccia, and so on.
Maybe we can make some examples, if you don't mind to go. I see another slide where there's a series of objects on the wall.
Yeah, the one before, yes.
Yes,
correct.
We can make maybe an example just of a few of the installations that are present in the exhibition to show you a bit of the thinking. For instance, so the objects on the wall, they have been collected by us throughout the preparatory 2 years of the exhibition within Europe, and they are common objects. Of course, this is just a selection. And what we did is collaborate with the Tunen Institute, which is doing testing on a product that enters European Union to understand if they come from legal or illegal sources. The kind of testing is basically microscopic analysis of wood samples or DNA analysis of wood. So we look in some of these random mundane objects to look into if the kind of species that were declared in the importing paper, they were matching the actual specimen that was used. Of course, this is just a small example of the kind of installation we did for Serpentine. Just to say that some of these very mundane objects, for instance, still nowadays use endangered specimens, or for instance, tropical woods, which are coming from a complex ecosystem like the Amazon, which are applied for absolutely bizarre applications, for instance, charcoal for barbecue. This to say that the daily objects we use nowadays, sometimes they're still compliant on disrespectful and irresponsible use of natural resources. And also the installations we have in front of the objects where we have packaging materials and paper in front of the objects. It was another more complex installation regarding the CO2 intake within objects and materials, and how much, for instance, when trees grows, the mass of wood is basically CO2, and that CO2 is stored within objects made of wood or paper. But whenever we throw away these objects, the CO2 is released in the atmosphere because often they are incinerated. So the installation there was sort of a visualization through disposable materials of the amount of CO2 that is intake by one tree in 5 years. So it's 5 years of life of a tree, the CO2 that a tree absorbs, but also visualize into disposable materials. Of course, the attempt here is to show how much there is a relationship between materials applications and
exactly.
CO2 emissions.
Because there is this narrative that if you use paper, we are fine with the environment. But of course, it really depends on how we apply material. There's nothing wrong about plastic. There's nothing wrong about metal. It's only about how we really apply this material into objects, into products.
And how long they last.
They last, exactly. Correct.
Because longevity for plastic, let's say, make plastic not so bad, let's say, if
no, exactly.
It is just what it is. I mean, if you think about that, a tree, to make another example to make it clear, if you think about an oak tree, a tree can live for hundreds and hundreds of years. But in the best case scenario, which is not how usually the industry is cutting, an oak tree could be cut around 90 years of age. In this 90 years of age, the tree grows and absorbs CO2, which is basically the mass of wood. Of course, then that wood is used to make a product. Well, then to make that product more sort of sustainable in terms of CO2 emissions in the atmosphere, then the product should at least outlive the life of that tree. So, because then another tree would grow, but then it means that, for instance, a stool produced in oak wood, should at least last longer than 90 years to make sure that another tree grows in that time to replace the CO2 emissions, which means that then a new different business model needs to be created to make based on for instance, durability.
But so the title of the project and the exhibition is Cambio. That is also a layer, right, of the trunk.
Correct, yes.
We can explain that.
Yeah, the Camber Layer is a really thin layer of a few cells between the bark and the inner side of part of the tree. It's actually the one responsible of adaptation throughout the different environment. So actually the cambio was the one that allowed a plant to become a tree million of years ago. So it's a very important cell to actually make the tree surviving.
Basically, trees
times.
became trees. They were plants, and they became trees because they needed an armor to survive climate changes. And then wood was this armor.
Yeah.
And the Camber layer is the one responsible to help trees and plants adapt.
Yeah.
That's also why we want to use this title, because it is about trees adapted to change in terms of environmental change, and change in terms of, you know, it's a wish for the development of a more sustainable practice in the industry of in the timber industry.
But with the cambio, meaning change in English, beside the double meaning referring to, what do you mean with cambio? Change, the change of our way of producing, way of thinking. That was the title of today.
Of course, I mean, it is definitely about that, but it is also about possibly change across all the lines all the production line that goes from sourcing, distribution, recycling, production. I think we can, you know, we can no longer look at things divided in little bags of knowledge, where the designer works from here to here, and then the rest somebody else takes care of it. Like this change we are advocating for with the exhibition is looking things holistically and understanding which changes can be done across the whole line, and not only on a design, on the specificity of design in terms of shaping of things.
This is great, and also is what at school my colleagues are doing, to mix and match disciplines and to help students to open their minds and horizon, putting together different fields. And next is a project from 2017, Ore Streams, that you did for Triennale Museum in Milano. Pieces of furniture made of electronics parts, right? So we can see a chair, a table.
Yes. Can we say something? Where maybe we need to contextualize this work. Actually, this work was commissioned by a museum in Australia, and then Paolo Antonelli for Triennale extended the commission. But the work, I mean, the object was extremely visually probably interesting and appealing, so a lot of people focus on to that. But actually, the work, the object was the smallest part of the work. Actually, the work was an extensive investigation. It was leading also to a series of videos, one of which in particular was describing a series of strategies on how to design an electronics object to make them more repairable and more recyclable. Then there were also the objects which were coming actually from the request of the museum that commissioned the work in Australia. They wanted us to design a series of furniture because they collect furniture in their collection. And so the objects, they came as a result where we use some recycled materials to make these objects. And they were, in a way, the object worked as a way to getting in contact with the people and companies that take care of recycling. So in a way, we didn't use the object as a solution, but as a way of getting in contact with companies that take care of recycling of materials, and specifically electronics materials. So in a way, the objects for us were not an excuse, but a Trojan horse to get in contact with companies that, for instance, recycle circuit boards, to extract gold from circuit boards, to understand how this process of recycling of electronics is actually happening.
Yeah, it can be done better, because, you know, when we visited all the recycling center, you know, we were asking which are your fault in the system, you know, which are the problem of recycling. They were saying there's no problem, you know, we can sort out everything. The flux of like waste is perfect. But then, of course, we knew that that was not the reality. And what we did before even starting creating whatever part of the project, we were doing this video. You have like a frame here of the video. We were dismantling objects within the studio, and we did like practically, I think, around 20 objects between screens, computers, phone, etc. And we were actually going to the recycler, and then we were showing these videos. After that, we could really understand which were the problem within
because we could go in details through components of the struggles they face in recycling. And we look at this like both with recyclers based in Europe. Then we got in contact with NGOs to understand the struggles of recyclers that do not have the technology, you know, that we have in Europe. So in developing countries, specifically in India and in Kenya. And then we also got in contact with scholars, for instance, the United Nations University that looks into electronic waste policy making, with international police, Interpol, because they also take care of climate-related, environmental related crimes. All this to come up with a series of crossing the knowledges of all these different experts to come up with a series of pragmatic strategies for making electronics more repairable and recyclable. And if you're interested, we can mention a few of these very extremely basic strategies. Some of these, for instance, has to do with, we are proposing the introduction of a universal screwing system from electronics, so that in developing countries where less tools are available, the disassembling of components is possible. We are advocating for the using much less glue in the gluing of components. One problem with the especially digital tools is that because the idea of miniaturizing is taking so much importance, it also means that the components are glued. But while in Europe we shred electronics to recuperate materials, in developing countries, components are taken apart and reapplied in new products. So when you use glue, that's not possible. We also advocating for the introduction of a digital passport for tools, so that what we mean for digital passport is that you can know the chains of custody and the materials that are applied in the productions of electronics. You have to know that many plastics, for instance, are engineered daily, and even recyclers in Europe, they struggle to know which plastic they are recycling.
Yeah, also there is a huge problem with the electric cable, because electric cable usually they are black. And the new recognizing system in this like recycling plant don't recognize black as a color. So all the time this plastic cable, they actually contain copper, that is a super precious material nowadays, goes in a completely wrong stream of waste. So for instance, just changing the color of the cord, so not having it anymore black or making it colorful, would change completely the way these parts are recycled. So you see, they are very simple.
Yeah. There is another one that I want to mention to give you an idea, because of course, when we design things in the Western world, sometimes we forget that they travel across the planet, and there are different realities there that must be taken into account. So when you open an electronic product, as we did, we didn't know, because there's any indication that some of the components are dangerous to be touched even by hand, because there is not even a labeling system that says what is dangerous or not. So for instance, another suggestion we gave is to maybe use a universal color coding to indicate what is dangerous,
what is not,
and what is not. So they are very extremely simple. So, and they are not. Then these are not strategies that are complex. They could be applied nowadays, but the best way to do that is, of course, if this is integrated into policy making, and this is where analytical design, understanding of the production process and the recycling process can be useful also for policy making.
Wow, guys, every time, every topic, every material is a massive universe, right? And you are more kind of also, you study a lot. You don't make, but I mean, you make, but also you study, because
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, when we call this research, it's because it is what we do, and it takes time. It takes years. For instance, in the case of World Streams, it takes years. In the case of Cambio, and in the case of Cambio, we are now continuing the project also in collaboration with a company trying to take the thinking of Cambio as a form of R&D in a way, where we are looking at the, for instance, in these days, we are looking at the sourcing and production of a company that produce furniture, but looking it linked to the ecosystem. So to say, okay, where do you get your wood? What can we improve across that line? Which kind of politics can the company implement in their in their culture of the company?
And each project is quite a complex one. So for instance, here I see that you put two different projects, and Cambio and Restream. It's like the Naturfossilium and Botanica. They are a very different kind of, they are in the same line of those two projects, but I would say these are much earlier work where we were much more interested in working on a material level.
Yeah, so I think this is interesting that we do a step back, because I think with Ore Streams and Cambio, it's almost as if we are growing up and taking more the responsibility of some ideas that were implied in the previous work, which were still much more based on product, on objects. And yeah.
You went further. What's next? What's next?
We do have a lot of next.
Which material are going to present, to study, and to
well,
explore?
we are keep going with Cambio, but we are very interested now in design for non-human. So that's something that that will be the next.
In the next future, we think we want to focus also in design, which is not only for human beings, but also for other creatures on the planet.
Ah, okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Cool. We book you for another talk.
Exactly.
Second area, product.
Yes.
That can be for big companies in the industrial design for floss, for example, or like more, let's say, collectible pieces. Your work for galleries, and you are the partner in crime of Giustini Staggetti Historical Gallery from Rome. So here we have a picture that is Wireline that you have behind you for floss, a brand new project, and the other one is the other one is a project for Giustini Staggetti from a couple of years ago. And you are kind of a rare bird in the current panorama, that you do both the path, industrial design and collectible design. And here is the list from your website of some, of course, research product very often go into product. So
yeah,
of course, every project, I think every research leads you then to make a product. And here we have Wireline, and I have the magazine. It's nice that Floss does a magazine to tell the story of the product. You are the protagonist.
Of the new issue, yeah. I mean, I have to say, Floss, it's a fantastic company, because it works not only on the product, but also on a strategic level. They are very interested in, make sure that the client that buy the product are understand who actually does the product.
Yeah.
But also what is the product about, and so this
and the culture around the design. I think they are very good. I mean,
they've always been good, in doing that.
So what is the product about? What is Wireline?
Yeah, so actually Wireline is connected to another product we did for Floss a few years ago, which was called Wiring.
I have it.
Yeah. So maybe let's start with our Wiring, because then you can see the sort of
relation.
One product developed to the other. So when we were doing the Wiring, our interest here was really to do something, I would call it as basic as possible, as simple as possible. And of course, when you think about something simple and electricity and lighting, a few years ago, you would have said the bulb with the electric cable. You can, a few years ago, still nowadays, that's the basic thing you can do. If you go to an hardware store, you buy a bulb, you buy an electric cable, and then basically you have a lamp. And we started thinking about how we could do that with LEDs. And basically the point of this lamp, the wiring, is that we have the LEDs inserted in the ring. The electricity do not come from the wall, so it's not an applique. It comes from the electric cable, which is the one supporting the ring also. So it is a rethinking of basically the electric cable and the bulb, but with LEDs. And where the electric cable becomes the sort of the element that constitute the lamp in itself. So it's not the secondary element, but it is the lamp in itself. So the wiring works with two attachment to the wall. You stretch the electric cable, you put the ring against the wall that has a screw, and then the connectors, the electricity, the ring has two connectors that are touching the electric cable, and then the electricity, goes through the ring. So in a similar fashion, we designed the wire line, but in a completely different scale. So the concept is the same. So the belt that you see going through, it's in fact
customized, it's a customized electric cable in rubber. So it's a flat one that has inside electricity coming through. And then we have this like tubular glass piece that's been extruded. So it's also very beautiful extruded glass piece that has the connector, and then enlight the LED inside. And then of course you can use it as a singular pieces, or you can stack in a kind of a chain, having, as you can see on the left, a much interesting and beautiful result.
You have the singular piece at home.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes,
yeah, we
indeed.
have a.
But they are two completely different products. They use the same technology and the same thinking. The wire line, it's meant for much bigger spaces, for hotels, for lobbies, and the wiring, it's much more a a sober home piece.
Cool. I saw it at Floss, but I didn't know the concept behind. So, in lighting is an area of research as well, right? You like playing with light because
yes, we love it.
Yeah, at the end there is a surprise to remember foundation. So.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say something about the lighting, that I think it is a typology of product that for us comes more intuitively. I mean, we are attracted to it. It's for us interesting to design with it. Also because of the technological evolution with LEDs, it offers opportunities. It gives us, we find it exciting.
Yeah. We could go on designing for our entire life.
I mean, we're not always interested in product design, but when it comes to lighting, I think for us, it is exciting.
Also because it can change the perception at home, right? The way we
absolutely
feel in an environment. So it has many meaning and effects on the human feelings and reaction. Guys, these are a few pieces for Giustini Stagetti Gallery. So product for, let's say, not industrial production, but a few pieces. And if I'm not wrong, this collection comes from Cambio exhibition.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly.
Yes, we can explain you here the relationship. So when we were designing the show at Serpentine, we also had to think about how to design the display of the exhibition. And we wanted the display to be somehow reflecting the politics of the exhibition. What I mean to say is the exhibition was all about the ecology and the relation with the forest. So one thing that always happens with exhibition design is that often it's the most impermanent thing and unsustainable is exhibition design, because of course it's temporary. And so here we wanted to make a series of objects that could outlive the exhibition. And in the sense, we had in mind some wonderful exhibition design from Lina Bobardi, but also from Carlos Scarpa. Now that we are trying to compete with them, Scarpa is a master. We cannot, it's up there. We don't want to, and even Lina Bobardi. But the idea was here to say, to think about how can we do an exhibition design which can outlive the exhibition. And that's also why we do an exhibition design that is based on furniture, so that they are abstract enough to be welcoming,
content,
exhibition materials, content, but at the same time they could also live in a home or in another environment.
So it's like giving a second life to the fixture that you design for
Exactly.
the exhibition itself.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And specifically also the materiality of the pieces here is material that we collected from Val di Fiemme in Italy. So from trees that were blew away from the Vaia storm a few years ago. It's a humble material because it's pine. Is it pine actually?
Yeah, it's pine.
I always get confused with an English.
It's white pine. Sorry, a red pine, like a Beterosso. Yeah.
And then we work with Giacomo Moore, the designer,
Italian young designer.
Exactly. And producer also that has fantastic workshop. He's an incredible designer also, and they produce for us this furniture. And yeah, this is the.
There is also a nice bench. I didn't put the bench in the slide, but
yeah, it's a very beautiful collection. I mean, we are very proud of it. They are very, very nice.
Yeah. I wrote Giustini Staggetti to invite them to follow us today.
Well, they're very supportive with our work, and they do a great. As a gallery, I think they're extremely committed to both contemporary and historical work, and we truly believe they are definitely one of the best gallery worldwide, and definitely in Italy.
I met them a couple of times at Nomad exhibition, and they also last year they presented a couple of pieces from you, also some vases, right, from a few years ago. So nice. Third area, exhibition design. So, for example, for Cambio, you just explained that you also designed the setting itself of your project and research. Here is another example from the Disquieted Muses. That is an exhibition that took place in Venice on the occasion of Venice Biennale last September. And here there is again a Cambio exhibition, and we can see the shelves that you did then for Giustini Staggetti. And this is the Caravaggio Bernini exhibition in Amsterdam.
Yeah, the Rijksmuseum. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, we have been always fascinated by exhibition design. I think in general, when we work, we all the time think about in the exhibition format since the beginning, you know, when we were doing our project Autarky, Botanica, the Natural Fossilium, we all the time conceive whatever we do, never like as an object in itself, but as a collection of objects that get exhibited in some places. So we have been always, you know, really into thinking about the space and the exhibition. And since a couple of years, actually since the Caravaggio Bernini, at the Rijksmuseum, we really started to work a lot into exhibition design, and
even nowadays we're working a lot.
Yeah, we have like in the lineup, I think, other 5 or 6 exhibition design the next years. So it's a field that we are exploring a lot because we are very interested also in the ephemerality of it, on the fact that, you know, there is something that it's on for 3 months and then disappear. So let's say that also our ecological thinking should and is starting now to be applied also in exhibition design. It's not very easy, I have to say.
It's almost impossible,
but there are a few, you know, things that can be done also in exhibition design to make it more ecological. And I think we are going to work more and more in the future.
I think
ecological. What do you mean with ecological?
We can elaborate on that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another thing that I want to say is that sometimes we are fascinated by things we hate. And there's plenty of exhibition design that we hate. We really hate with a passion, and so that's also a good reason to design. You know, you hate something, you try to do it better. There's also plenty of good exhibition design, but there is a problem with the exhibition design, and it's that it doesn't last long. So there is an ecological problem there. It is extremely difficult to design based on this subject, because you have many restrictions. So not always you can take into account how you can make something more long lasting. But I can give some example. For instance, the exhibition of Caravaggio and Bernini was extremely not ecological in itself, because we used plenty of meters of textile to do those panels on the back. Now they look like just colored, but they were textile panels. But then we work with the developer to make sure that the panels had a module of the dimension that would respect the dimensions of the textile, so do not have waste. We worked with the producer to make sure that textile would be reused after the exhibition. So, for instance, the textile has been used for other 3 exhibitions, and then also used for workshops in
like social
related projects here in Amsterdam. For the Disquieted Muses, which was an incredibly short time we had to design the show. It was also an exciting project because of that. We had really basically like less than a month to design the full show. But there, for instance, we thought about the structure in the modular system so that the boxes used for the exhibition could potentially be reused again
for archival exhibition, because it's something that Biennale is interested in doing in the future. So hopefully this system will be reused. But then there are very simple things like using white walls. It's a very good practice in exhibition design, because when you need to do an exhibition and I don't know, you're going to have a green or a red wall, it means that it needs to be repainted first in white and then on another color in order to do the next exhibition. It means a lot of like paint, and paint, of course, it's also about pollution. So, for instance, using very light color like white or gray would help in any case in making more ecological exhibitions.
Or the best ways to work with an institution on a long term, which we didn't manage yet, but we are trying to look into that. So that you have a planning, not thinking about one exhibition but the correlations between multiple exhibitions. So you can make a choice. You can see where there could be common points. So that at least you don't think about one exhibition, but you think about 3 exhibitions. But this requires a different way of working with a museum.
But we will get there.
In Holland, they're very open for this kind of conversation. You need also to work in a different way with the producers. Usually producers are allocated at the end of the design, but we think that's completely not a unsustainable way of working, because if you work with producers since the beginning, you can think with them more carefully.
You guys are really pushing a new way of thinking, right? It's like you push us to change our mindset.
I mean, we try, yeah. It's often a failure. Yeah, it's not always we can do that. So there are sometimes we are designing exhibitions and we cannot apply this thinking.
But that's also part of our discipline. You know, design is a very ambiguous discipline because it sits in between production, exploitation. So of course, all our work is about compromises. And you know, we need to accept also that. So we will never be perfect. There will be all the time shades and dirty parts, but it's important to be aware of that and try to make small changes. It's something that we are trying to do every day.
Guys, why the name Formafantasma, that in English for our international students means shape ghost, form of ghost? It's very funny. I'm sure that there is a meaning, right, that you want to convey.
Yeah, I mean, we just because our way of working, I mean, we like to formalize things. Our work is also formal, but we don't start from form. We don't start from a formal research on shape of things, but it's more about the process, the research, the context. So we're not interested in that kind of thinking that is based on
so you don't start, I want to make lighting. Maybe you start, I want to explore lighting.
Correct.
Yeah, we don't start from one. Yes, exactly. We don't start from, I want to design a lamp with this form because I like it.
And also maybe it's not I want, but I would like to change the production. I would like to help the design industry to find new ways, more ecological.
I mean, let's be honest. I think the majority of good designers work in this way. But I think that the perception of design generally is of a styling tool. And that's, you know, what we are trying to escape with this name. That it's not about style, it's not about the form. Of course, our own work is subject to style, to fashion, to form, to all these parameters.
And we enjoy that a lot.
And
it's also really part of that.
But that's not the driving force behind design and not the driving force behind our practice.
So that's why Formafantasma. The
Yes,
shape
correct.
is like a ghost, but
Yeah.
And who does what between you two?
Well, I have to say I'm the organized one, so I'm a quite like yes. You can tell about.
I can confirm that Andrea was super available in our back and forth to prepare.
Yeah, I'm very precise.
We have a
I like that.
we have a 24-hour policy for emails responding because we think we hate when people are rude and don't respond to emails. So, but definitely he's the most organized. He's a Sicilian born in Bolzano, so that says it all.
Yeah, I'm about planning and schedule and agenda and
and
be
making
on
sure
time.
that things happens. And he's also the one that I can keep on wondering all the time about things, and he's the one that says like, no, let's cut the bullshit. This is it. So he's also the decision maker. I'm the one that keeps on revisiting things, rethinking things, and sometimes I also make a mess because of it. But
that's also very healthy to have this counterpart. Otherwise, it would be so boring for everybody in the studio. So.
How many people do you have on your team?
So it depends. Now we are in 7 with us. Usually we get till 9, 10 maximum. That's the size that we like, and we don't want to grow more.
Sometimes we are even less. Sometimes we expand. Sometimes we shrink. More or less, I would say between 6 and 7 is the average.
Yeah.
And now we are talking from your home. This is also studio, right?
Correct. Yes,
I saw
correct.
some images in the Floss magazine, and also I watched a couple of videos with you. Can you showing us around or?
Sure. I mean, we can a bit. I mean, I don't know what you see now. Now everybody is not.
We don't see. I mean, we don't see the
I mean,
No, but we can see the space. Super nice.
I mean, there's nobody now. They are all at home. They just left, but and the dog is sleeping there, so everything is
Here,
quiet
guys,
at
we
the
have
moment.
the dog. We have Andrea
Exactly.
with Terra.
Where is this vision coming from?
It's from Floss, yeah, from the magazine. Yeah. Well, we love him so much. He's our favorite
Creature.
Yeah, creature at the moment. We are so obsessed by Terra. Yeah, that's
I
the name
know,
of the
guys.
dog.
It would be nice to explore some design for dogs that is not stupid a lot, because there is a universe for pets.
I know.
Well, I have an idea on when we were training him. Of course, it's all. I mean, this is an anecdote. I'm not sure we should talk about this, but still, let's talk about this. For Camber, we also work with a smell researcher. Her name is Cecil Tolas. So we started really thinking about the smell, in our life and so on. And at one point, when we were having Terra as a puppy, he was he'd pee on our sofa a few times, sometimes it happens. And I use an incredible good strategy, which we think is a design strategy, to do not make him pee there. I started wearing for a few days. I wear a perfume which is quite intense from Santa Maria Novella in Florence.
Okay, the Florence company.
Yes, exactly. And I started spraying my own perfume on the sofa, and he started stopping to pee on the sofa because I started to trace my own territory.
As he does.
I started to think about the dog as a dog, and it worked. So
next project is about
dogs.
Thinking like a dog.
Guys, last but not least, let's look at 2017, when you were, let's say, a super successful case during Milano Design Week. Everyone was talking about your exhibition at Spazio Crizia in the city center. Was called Foundation, and you were presenting again lights, not just for Floss, but different brands, right? And if you want, I think that this image can sum up your areas, I don't know, your exploration of lighting, playing. I'm very sorry. I was sure to have put
no problem.
Put mode.
That's the beauty of like working at home in these days and being able to do this kind of stuff. There is like a homing feeling that is nice. Well, Foundation was a fantastic experience for us. We were actually that year presenting our first industrial piece for Floss, and we were doing this like long research into lighting that ended up in Floss, the lamp. Then we were working with the Galleria Giustini Saggetti for some other lamps. And then we exhibited plenty of tests that we were doing in the studio. So it was like a mix between finished pieces, test pieces, and I don't know, it was a beautiful exhibition.
It was yeah, we really enjoyed it. It was also coming after a presentation at Pipol in Milan. It was an art center that hosted us there. And for us, it was a way to show when we can, how we can approach a commission from a company. And in that case was, you know, the idea of thinking about lighting. Piero Gandini, many years before the presentation, came to us when we were actually.
Maybe for the guys, Piero Gandini is the founder of Floss, like
Yes.
the big mentor behind some of the most successful lights in history.
And then he was asking us if we wanted to design something for Floss, but I think we were too young, too non-expert. And so
we said no, we
didn't say no, but I mean,
well,
we basically have been silent for a lot of years. And then at one point, we started thinking, no, okay, let's go back to lighting, but let's study a bit. And then that's what we did with Foundation. And then weirdly enough, while we were doing this, Piero Gandini contacted us again and says like, hey, what's up? And we said like, hey, we're ready to speak with you again. So it was just perfect. And then, yeah, this is how it came about.
Cool. Guys, I think we are super fine. If you are fine, we feel that we covered, I mean, there is so much to tell you about you, but the main points. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
I hope to meet you in person soon. I mean, I met you in another occasion, but I would like to see you in Milan, or maybe Fabio, we can invite them to school.
Absolutely, we would be more than happy.
For a talk in person or a workshop on some material. And thank you so much, guys. And we are looking at you. So, and also, just to finish up, our title, Change, coming, of course, from Change at Serpentine Galleries, but with the subtitle Design in the Flux, I think that, Andrea, you want to mean with this title your ability to really stay in the flux, in the change, in our times. Your design is very topical. Topical meaning current, quite into times. Anything else?
No.
Let's see if somebody has questions. And
yeah, exactly. Now it's the turn of Aoi. That I mean, there is a panel of students with some question. I guess Aoi is better that you take the microphone. Let's say. Please bear in mind that there are some questions also in the chat. After you finish, maybe you can cover also the question in the chats. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, yes.
Hi, Caterina. Hi, Andrea. Hi, Simone.
Hi.
I did the conclusion because it was for YouTube. Now we go ahead. So.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, so thank you so much for your inspiring talk. It was definitely a food for thought for every one of us. I'm Aoi Hasegawa. I'm the program leader of the Masters in Product Design and Interior and Living Design at Domes Academy. Nice to see you. Today, I'm here to introduce my students from product design because we formed the discussion group for this talk, and the students have a lot of questions to you. So I would like to introduce my students to you. We have 5 students: Celeste Calvanese from Italy, Mignon Yi from South Korea, Daniele Snip from the Netherlands, and Junda Rang from China, and Sidi Xu from China. So we can start from the question of Don. Don, are you there?
Yes,
Hi.
I am here. Can you wait?
Yes, we can hear you, Don.
You should be able to see me too.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, thank you first of all for this lecture. It was very nice. It's nice to, because I've never met you guys before, although I am from the Netherlands. And it is nice to kind of get a little bit of an informal look behind what the designs are, and I think that's very nice. Like we said, we had a discussion group, and in this discussion group, we looked into your work, and I was particularly interested by Cambio, the work about the timber industry. And on this topic, I also have a question, because in the previous months, I've been looking into what is in building material, both design and architectural, what could be the future. And there's been in the past 5 years a lot of development around bamboo instead of timber. And there's a few problems with this, because the adoption in the industries is not that big, because there is no certification for it, and then nobody wants to build with it. But this is like a circle that keeps on going. And I brought this up during our discussion group, and we realized that we had a lot of different perspectives on this. And so I have a question for you, as designers that are heavily focused on materializing objects in new and interesting ways. What is your opinion about using bamboo, and how would you see bamboo materialize, not just in their natural shape, but do you guys have an opinion on this material, as it could maybe potentially revolutionize the building industry and also design?
I think it would be dangerous to stick to a revolution based on one species. Mm-hmm. What I mean to say is that that's what happened with the paper industry. So paper pulp is essentially produced with the eucalyptus and with other fast-growing species, which means that then these species are planted and they substitute other ecosystems in different parts of the world to, to supply enough materials for the gigantic monster that the paper industry is. So to talk about building materials and building architectures based on to say bamboo is better than other materials, it means also to look at bamboo without its context, which is where it grows and under which conditions. Mm-hmm. So I would say that it's best to think about the applications of timber or wood-based or plant-based fibers in building, because then you can localize it to what grows locally.
I think locality in this case is quite important to mention, because again, if for sure, I mean, I don't know so much about bamboo in this specific. I mean, we didn't look into that yet. But of course, if you start to use bamboo in Italy or in I don't know, in Brazil, and because maybe grows very well in Brazil, the fact that you are gonna build, you're gonna grow forests of bamboo in an ecosystem that is not about bamboo can have a huge impact. And these already happen a lot in a lot of countries. For instance, in this moment, we are looking into Finland because we are continuing Cambio with a company Simone was mentioning before. We can't tell the name, but we are working there.
I know the name.
But you can't say it. Exactly. But then, well, whatever, Finland or Northern Europe, it's fine. But I mean, we're looking at the forest there. You notice how in 100 year time, because the paper industry entered within Finland, completely changed the culture of timber industry there. So it was a much more mixed forest before, and now it became almost like a monoculture.
I mean, we are simplifying the concept here. Obviously, the thing is much more layered, but just to say, there cannot be a solution that is abstracted from the ecosystem.
So when you say like, for instance, some people say like, oh, this wood is the best. Yeah, of course, but for what? Extracted where? In which context and so on. So I think, for instance, where it is, locally growing, I think that's a fantastic solution.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. We can proceed with the next student. Ming, are you there? Ming, can you activate your microphone?
Hello, can you hear me now? Okay, first of all, thank you for your lecture. And before meeting you guys, we are searching for your work, and I was surprised that you also work with the Samsung. And I was surprised that also you work with Samsung is because the Samsung is a little bit like conservative brand. So I want to ask you, how was the project, especially for the process and the communication with them?
Yes. So that was an interesting collaboration. It came through Samsung Italy,
yeah.
and it was about materials and finishing for the company. I mean, I think we can say till a certain point things. You know, there's also agreements between clients but I think it was an interesting project for us because we could also see the limitations of big companies. What I mean to say is that we were asked to work on materials and finishing specifically, but we were all the time struggling with it because we thought it was a very limited idea of design, because you cannot think, the more you subdivide the understanding of a product, the more the politics about innovation, they cannot really happen, because again, you subdivide knowledge also. So we made a presentation about materials and finishing, but in the book of presentation, we included a lot of things that had anything to do with,
they didn't ask, but
they didn't really want to look into those, but we were looking into privacy, into issues that are extremely, I think, important related to you know, digital devices, and yeah, there's nothing else that I can say apart from the fact that for us it was an extremely important experience, because we could understand what doesn't work in big companies like Samsung.
Yeah.
But also Samsung, I think, has a clear idea on the fact that I don't think they consider themselves as an innovative company. They are not driven by innovation as a company. So it was also bizarre for us to be in there. But we had an extremely good experience with the Italian team,
yeah,
and with a conversation with them. It was a very good one.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And the next will be Celeste. Celeste, are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I am here.
Yeah.
Thank you for Formafantasma for your lecture, and also for stimulated talks that you always give to us. I would like to ask to you, which methods do you use to come up with new ways to look at existing materials in order to create new products? And because the process looks easy but simple, but I think it's not for nothing easy, and we would like to understand how exactly.
Well, you know, it really depends from project. Sorry, can you lower down the voice, because I just hear my voice back? Yeah, thank you. Well, it really depends from project to project. I mean, some project comes easy than others. You know, like it really depends. I mean, like our work is so contextual, and depending on the request from the client, it really can span from a research that lasts 2 years, like Cambio, or you know, a project we do for a company that needs to be very quickly done into weeks or a month. You know, it really depends.
Sometimes we are moved by things we don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
Or things that we find like that we look into a subject and then we realize there are like at one point we find the elephant in the room, if you know what I mean, like something that is obviously overlooked, or that we find it silly or uninteresting, or and then we think, okay, there is something we can work on here. I don't know how to reply to these questions, because it's also about the process and you're developing ideas over time. But maybe the most basic answer is that it comes from conversation between the two of us, so that it's not about again sitting down looking at something and coming up with ideas, but it's about our conversation and our understanding of what we are interested in design. And often it's also, we are interested in the things we don't like about design because we're interested in changing them. So we are driven by that.
And there is a specific place that you prefer for do that, that you prefer to speak about the problems, other stuff?
I don't know. No, it really, no. I would say no. It really, I think at the beginning of our career, we were really concentrated probably in Italy and Sicily because we were much more working on craft. But I think that happened because we were living here in Holland, and we were looking to Italy from a foreigner perspective, and then it helped us really to try to trace our roots and to understand where we were coming from. But more we are going ahead, more we are really interested in the global perspective and the global connection. So no, there's no specificity in that.
Thank you a lot. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next will be Siri. Siri, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Formafantasma. Thank you so much. It was a great lecture. It's really nice to see you guys. Sorry, I apologize for my camera. It's just currently not working. But
no worries.
Okay. So my question is about Anthropocentrism, which is I think nature serves as a background from the perspective of Anthropocentrism, which obscures the appearance and the communication of objects, while ecology maybe should restore the original vitality of objects to a certain extent. In recent years, I've been reading and saw a lot of authors and the influence of materialism and the circular thoughts in ecology on the cultural culture can be regarded as an extension of the anthropocentrical perspective. So this epistemological paradigm shift and urges us, or maybe designers, to invent a new type of knowledge. Given this background, how should the designers respond with their own intervention practices about this topic?
And that's an extremely good question. We don't have yet the answer, but we are sort of looking into it. What I would say is that the design discipline, but not only the design discipline, but design as a human activity, because before becoming a discipline, design is a human activity. The idea is that we as human, we modified our environment according to our wish and desires, is innate. And so in this sense, it is anthropocentric by nature. There's nothing we can do with that. Nevertheless, I think the idea of making design less anthropocentric, it is incredibly relevant and interesting as an exercise, because it can push us forward in an understanding of, in developing a real ecological thinking that it's based on the cohabitations on the planet of different species, which is of course extremely challenging. But so it is not about, I think, removing the human from the center of the design discipline, but it's making the center much more inclusive of other species. In a way, with Camber, we were trying to look into that and trying to think about the tension there is between the economical politics, but also the biological politics of the forest. But we don't have necessarily a solution. I think a lot can be done on a design level. It is a territory that needs to be much more explored. And of course, there are people that explore that much more than we have done, or we so far. It is about, I think, developing an empathy for other realities than the human one, knowing that by doing so, we're going to take care of the well-being of humans. So the more scientific development is going ahead, the more we are understanding how the planet works, the more we understand that we cannot survive if the other species are not surviving. That if we lose the ecosystem, we lose our culture. That there's no survival if the other species do not survive. So design has to act in this direction. How? Well, in our realm, for instance, we are doing it in looking, for instance, into the sourcing of wood and understanding if we can think of practices of silviculture that goes beyond the economic paradigm. Forests is being shaped by humans according to what we need, like wood to produce energy, wood to create boats to colonize territories, and all these other horrors. And but nowadays we need to start, for instance, designing forests to make them survive to climate change. We need to think about forests in terms of how much they help us in absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. So we cannot just keeping on using them. We also need to protect forests, because natural ecosystem, natural forest, natural, I mean, okay, I'm simplifying here the concept, but I mean, primary forests are what leads the way to absorbing of CO2, so we need to protect them. And design can do a lot in this respect. Our practice is trying to do that. So I think you need to find your own voice and to think about this question, because we don't have solutions. Nobody has.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your opinion. It's quite very interesting and very thoughtful. I can't agree more. We can proceed with the next student, the last one, the last but not least, Jun Lao. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Hello, guys. Hello, Andrea. Hello, Simone. And thank you so much for your sharing for today, and it was amazing. And I do have some questions related to the nowadays situation. You know, as an experimental design studio, you did a lot of works related to the environment, and now we are under like this health emergency, COVID-19. And for me personally, I think it's a kind of counterattack to from our planet to us as human being. And my question is, what do you think about this COVID and what this emergency brings to us in the field of design? And is there any change of the way that you work in your studio, and how you guys work during this COVID period?
Maybe we start from the end. Well, of course, it had a huge impact, more in the way of working, I would say, that than on a daily basis. So fortunately, we didn't have major cancellation of work. So we worked throughout all the pandemic. So we have been very lucky. So all the people who work with us, they kept working. Of course, it changed a lot because we had to work remotely, and we are still working partially remotely. And I have to say, we are very tired of it. But thanks, also to Zoom and all the technology we have been able, in any case, to catch up with the work.
So it's easy to talk with the clients.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not easy to work with people, which is a different thing.
Yeah, I have to say, for us, in certain aspect, it was great because before the pandemic, we were traveling twice per week. And we were get used to a life that was absolutely crazy. And now we are realizing how exactly also very responsible. We were traveling to do a lecture while we can do a lecture nicely as we are doing today. We can check, samples from companies being in our studio without traveling to Milan or to other places. And I think this kind of,
we will not go back to
we will not go back to that. On the other side, I can't wait to go to a restaurant, to travel for leisure. I think we will be traveling, all of us, much more for leisure than for work, hopefully.
Less and better, I would say.
Yeah.
And then also the other thing that I really realize, especially with the teaching that we do, that it's extremely difficult to talk about design without a human interaction, which also made me think how much this discipline is human in itself.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
It's extremely humane. It needs humane contact. It needs humane conversation. It needs bodily connections. At least this is what we feel. Which instead of scaring me, it made me happy that design is a discipline that needs this. In terms of instead of the second part of the questions, how design should change or with the impact of the pandemic. I think, of course, there's different answers you can give to that. You can argue that many people are paying attention to their home and the way they live, for instance, much more than before, and many other implications. But I think most of all, I hope and I think that this pandemic put even more attention to the ecological crisis we are living. It's a bit what you were saying before. We know that how much the consequences of pandemic is also a consequence of responsible politics, for instance, with deforestation. So I hope that it made, I think, the climate crisis tangible. I think, sadly, the media didn't make this connection clear enough. But if we are in a pandemic, it's because of the climate crisis. So if we want to survive this, we have to think about the way we are living on the planet.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. We can proceed with the Q&A that we received in our chat. There are some comments and questions. Do you guys still have time to answer?
Yeah, I think we can go also very quickly. We have in front of us, so it's. I mean, we can definitely do it.
Yes, yes.
Just
So
a comment.
exactly. Great.
Just a comment. Cambio in Portuguese means exchange.
Well,
Also
it's good to know. It's nice that it means exchange and not only change. I think it is.
But it's also in Italian. If you think about cambio, it's also
cambiamento.
Il cambio, where you exchange things. You know, like, so
okay,
it's also in Italian means in a way exchange.
Maybe it should be scambio.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
Andrea.
No, but il cambio where you change money.
Correct.
So, you know, it means also exchange.
This Caravaggio Bernini museum is very Carlos Scarpa. It's only a museum, it's a temporary exhibition.
And it is very Carlos Scarpa. Yes, it is true. I think sometimes it is better to revisit brilliant ideas than coming up with horrible ones. And about the Italian meaning of cambio, change, thanks for your inspiring work and for showing that having a more sustainable design industry is possible. Yeah, or it's hopeful.
Do you think companies or brands are ready to embrace sustainability? Definitely. I think some of the company are still interested more on a marketing level. Other instead, they really believe in it. I think it's the moment in which finally, you know, companies are realizing that, you know, they need to be much more ecological. And I have to say, even like the requests that we are getting more and more from companies are going that direction. So yes, definitely are going into that. So
but also we should think that with design we are participating to a culture that it's not meant to be as much as the ecological problem is not the problem of a generation, as much the cultural change for it should be the problem of a generation. So whatever we do that contribute to a cultural change, we hope that it can be extending beyond our lifetime, beyond the chair, beyond the furniture, beyond the brands. But it's I mean, we need to realize that the climate problem is what will fully change the way we even not only live, but we understand everything. So we are not working for tomorrow. We are working for the next, hopefully, 100 years if we survive.
And that's it. I mean, for the rest, I mean, about the co-design with no humans. Well, we are still on it. So let's talk about it in the next conference.
Okay.
So guys, sorry, Aoi, go ahead.
No, Caterina, go ahead. Thank you very much. From my side, I just want to thank you guys and Caterina.
Oh, thank you, Aoi.
Also for the interaction with the students. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Andrea, it seems that you have a wire ring on your
Yes, you're right.
So very coherent.
Always coherent.
I can say that. So you demonstrated that today, explaining us your behind the scene. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in Milano very soon.
Absolutely.
Grazie.
Bye.
Grazie.
Thank you so much, guys.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Ciao Mark. Ciao Fabio.
Ciao.
Grazie.